hey gamers. I found out there's a few topics that you're really not supposed to talk about online, at least. Well, at least unless you don't want to end up on an FBI watch list. But that's besides the point. The few things I talked about were like tax evasion, how to hide bodies, the Monkey King series, or at least just the Wii one. But there's more. Oh, there's a lot more.
FBI, open up!
Oh, the FBI's here. Well, Brazil calls, so gotta go.
Well, I know I'm not at Brazil yet, but I'm pretty sure I'm almost there. It's been like 5 months of traveling. And you might say, well, Ezra, why didn't you just take a car there? Well, the simple answer is I can't get pulled over with my previous crime record. Oh, crap.
Well, now that I'm prisoner of the monkey overlords, I guess I could talk about their games now. It's not like the US government can intervene. I can't be arrested twice, can I? The Monkey King. Man, what can I say that you probably already know? Monkey King is a chunk of a story referred to as Journey to the West, one of China's 4 classical literatures. But that doesn't matter. All you need to know is that the Monkey King's name is Sun Wukong, he emerged from some rock, and that he is just an absolute crackhead that is 7 times immortal because he's very impulsive and has pissed off heaven and the Jade Emperor, or basically God, way too many times, but can't go to hell because he can't die. But he also pissed off Buddha, and technically pissed on him too. So he got squashed under a mountain for 500 years, and then he is awakened to go help Xuanzang. Yep, the first 2 games do nothing with this lore at all. So here we have Chuka Tyson, Monkey King, Master of the Clouds. Originally it was released in 1988 on the Sega Master System, computers, Famicons, and in arcades, and it was just called Chuka Tyson by Japanese audiences, which translates to Great Wizard of the Middle Kingdom. For Western audiences, they referred to it as Cloud Master. In Japan, it was considered the 16th best arcade cabinet the year of its release. Right now, I'm playing the Switch remaster that was recently put out. It seems to be a pretty faithful recreation for the most part to the arcade edition with a slight overhaul to the graphics. To briefly summarize the game, you're just a monkey with powers that flies on a cloud that wants to become the Cloud Master. Don't we all? But to do this, he has to shoot up some animals and bowls of soup along the way, obviously. Or at least that's what I'm assuming God wants me to do for my training. Personally, I thought all it took was a severe nicotine addiction. The gameplay does have an arcade-type feel to it, especially considering all it takes is 1 hit to die in the game. And dying is something that is to be expected with this game, and not from the lung cancer. Considering this was an arcade game, and that the whole idea with those is to get kids to drop as many quarters on it as possible, I can see this one being a very costly one at that. Though it is good at being addicting for sure, the game design makes it where you feel a need to develop a pattern to win because the enemies come at you the same way depending on where you are at the moment. But with only about 2 checkpoints per level, I feel like my progress gets nowhere. And throughout the game, if you kill a wave of enemies, you tend to get powers that you lose when you die. Personally, I've only beaten the first boss once throughout playing the game for a solid 5 hours. And you might say, oh Ezra, you've only beaten the first level, how on earth are you expected to make a solid review of the game that you haven't beaten? And to that I say, how dare you talk to 116th place in the world that way? However, the saving grace of this game is that after you have gone to another level, you are able to choose from the menu to start on that level. Well, the story basically just doesn't exist, minus at the end of each level you get a new title, but at the end of the game you get a new message saying that you're a superhuman now. And also a Chuka Tyson, or in other words, a Cloud Master. Well, after all this time of playing Cloud Master, I figured I need to break my new smoking addiction. Fortunately for me, I have my Stop Smoking code for the Nintendo DS. Look, 2 people have already broken their addiction. Why else would I have found it at GameStop? On to the next game in the series, being Monkey King: The Legend Begins. This game was released in 2008 and only on the Wii. This game by all definitions is a reboot. They didn't do much with what they originally had. The gameplay mechanics are practically the same, except they did add some things to make the game more enjoyable. Such as the way to speed past the entire game, all you had to do was just tilt the Wii remote. A 2-player mode, and they gave you a health bar instead of an instant death. They revamped all the sprites of the enemies, so now we know that I wasn't fighting soup, I was actually just fighting a chicken. In this version, everything is much more easier to the point that the main story can be beaten in around 15 minutes. As far as the story goes, there isn't much to say except according to the plot synopsis, it states that in this one he doesn't want to be just a superhuman, He wants to be God. Well, I had aspirations, but mine can't even compare to a literal monkey. I mean, what's the point in competing with them? They're just simply better. To be fair, there is no wiki page for this game, so I can't tell you how well it did, but I can tell you with ease that Disinfectant Wipes 2 has probably sold more units. The game does have a difference when it comes to the story, and that is there's a reason behind everything, and it's actually explained. Wukong wants some training, and so does Mei Mei here. So they go from location to location, beating up monsters that have invaded villages, and the boss fights are animals that got turned into big monsters. But in the end of all of it, there is an added stage that wasn't in the original game, and who would have guessed it? We're going to hell.
Yeah, it was probably all the animal murder.
And getting to that point in the game, you're sort of expected to have all your magical powers at that point, so upon fighting the final boss, you sort of just win. And then you're crowned the title Chuka Tyson. Well, I'll take it. I'm no god, but I'm still a Cloud Master.
I'm still addicted.
Besides the next game I'll be talking about in the Monkey King series, its legacy isn't completely wasted. One of the game studios behind the release of the Monkey King went on to make another sort of not really Monkey King related game, apparently called Saint. It released a year later in 2009, and has all the same gameplay elements, and even the sounds are ripped right from the Monkey King Legend Begins. Look, I can tell you that they're great developers all day, or I can show you that they made every single Chuck E. Cheese related game on the DS and Wii. Now time to talk about what really matters, that being the most recent game put up by my new overlords. Monkey King Heroes Back was released in 2009 for the PC and PS4. This game released a solid 4 years after the movie that is based upon. Yep, it's another movie tie-in game, which really does come to light when you do play it, considering how it's pretty bland and unoriginal. The story does start out going over the story of Sun Wukong practically word for word, his actions in a brief summary, but you can see it slowly change as they name him halfway into the cutscene as Deshong. But then we are given the perspective of this child, Luer, who is just strolling in some cave, then bam, monkey time. Except, he gets his magic revoked, and the only way to get it back is by being a good little monkey.
Maybe you would get your magic back if you let me go.
But they move down to this village and beat the snot out of some monsters that they never tell you what they're specifically called. They are just... Monster! We then find out that the monsters are kidnapping little kids because... well, I will get back to that later. They travel and find more weird enemies around the world until they find this abandoned, monster-filled village. And at this point in the game, you find your main antagonist, a solid 75% into the game. At that point, shows you that you're no god, and he takes the kids. After this, he does some training, fights himself, and then a dragon, and then fights the kidnapper. And then the child dies. The Shun gets mad and then fights some worm who's also the kidnapper, but he does it as Super Saiyan. Then the kid gets revived in the end credits scene, and that's the plot. I wasn't really leaving out any key details, that's the game's story, which is far better than the previous games being about becoming a god. In this case, it's about being good, but the intentions of the main villain are never really explained unless you watch the movie trailer, in which we discover he's getting 100 kids exactly to boil them up to live forever. Man, why don't you just do some of the mystical drugs? And as far as the gameplay goes, it's extremely stale and just boring. You go from place to place hitting enemies to get XP, to learn magical moves that are just really boring, such as Kung Fu Bench. Even in the end of the game, when you go Super Saiyan, there is no repercussion for taking damage. You just click left or right on the mouse until you win.
This game is just trash. I just hope my overlords don't mind me calling it that.
Put your hands up, don't make any sudden movements.
Alright, hands up, yep.
Just as I suspected. You're the freak that's been yammering on about the Monkey King.
Well, if you want to be accurate, they're actually called the Great Wizards of the Middle Kingdom, and only on Tuesdays.
Well, for your previous criminal record, I have no choice but to arrest you. And, well, since we're already in Wyoming, I feel like this is a reasonable prison sentence for you.
Wait, I'm not in South America?
Buddy, what drugs are you on? We're not in South America. There's snow on the ground outside.
The mystical kind?
Well, since I have a very strict policy of not shooting crazy people, you're just gonna get a life sentence here, bud.
Son of a bitch.
Hey gamers, well it seems I'm stuck in this new place. At the very least, I know for a fact when I'm done here, they'll be calling me the Great Wizard of the Middle Kingdom. But I guess for now I have to make use of my surroundings. I mean, it seems in Wyoming they have emptiness, more emptiness, and who could forget Arby's?
Hey, welcome to my vlog. It's me on your phone, Ezra.